Next, you sign it. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Do it for common sense. All right. Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order Thursday, March 13th, 2025 at 10:35. At table, present. Ms. Berlino, present. Mr. Castillo, Ms. Coleman, present. Ms. Gaines, present. Ms. Arsenault is on her way for Ms. Cooper, her later. Ms. Wilson, here. Mr. Myers, here. Ms. Miller, present. Ms. Alpick, Mr. Salter, here. You have four. We'll move into introductions and announcements. Did you? Okay. Okay, never mind. I know where I'm going to put it. Okay. Salted. Okay. Introductions and announcements. Here's something. Any Did you do that, or does this not work? Try to be.
Have a moment to recognize Ms. Shirley Inn. Ms. Inn was a part-time employee with us. She had a long career in the state of Louisiana. And before her passing, she was a part-time employee with us in our administration and procurement unit. So she passed away on February 18th. For those of you who know Terrence Inn, this was Terrence's mother. So definitely want to celebrate her. She was a wonderful person and made a wonderful impact here at LOSFA. We also are celebrating Jason Whitworth's service for our LOSFA, 24 years, and as you can see, 7 months of service. And Jason has retired. Jason was our Director of Information Technology that succeeded Alice. And we are in the process and actually have done some reorganization with that department, and probably at a subsequent meeting feature that reorganization and let you know how we're handling that.
We also have another retiree, Mark Elder. He is retiring tomorrow. This is his last day, and he's been with us 26 years and 8 months. So he will be very, very much missed. Actually, he was going to come down, but he's on his way out right now. We took their lunch and his staff celebrating much more. Yes. So we wish him all the best. Wish him the understanding day because I think it's pretty.
Yes.
We're like, hey, become spare bedroom.
Thanks to all of the retirees, and it's amazing that you guys have had some years, and so we're ready. We'll go ahead and do a couple of minutes from last meeting. Now, Lindsay, you give the second. Brad, all of your shots. Release. Public comment. Brad, do you have any public comment at this time?
No, there is no public comment.
At this time, I would like to request to amend the agenda to business and prior program updates due to the schedule. Make a motion to amend the agenda. Brad, make a second. Ms. Mary Ellen, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Before we get into that, I would just like to say a few things. This week has been absolutely bonkers for a lot of purposes, for a lot of reasons. But I just want to say, you know, thank you guys for all of the dedication of our workers. We really felt at the state level and at our colleges. I think the most important thing that we have to think about during this time is the students that we serve.
So regardless of what's happening at our federal level, at our state level, departments are being cut, the students should be our North Star. Figure out ways to help them in the confines of the work that we're doing. And so I just want to say your work does not go unnoticed. We appreciate you, thank you. You know, just let's work together, figure the best way to navigate this together. So, all right, so now we're going to old business. The first order of business was that LOSFA Advisory Board considers publication of final rule to implement provisions of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, which provide that the Chase fee ETB shall be awarded without regard to financial. And have a motion to approve. I have a motion. Christie, motion second. Brad, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? All right, now we're going into new business. That the LOSFA Advisory Board consider rulemaking to amend section 313 of the START Station program rules to allow for the transfer of ownership of an account or more requires it, and to amend section 315 to add the applicable interest rates for the START savings program for calendar year ending December 31st, 2020.
I'll explain this one a little bit. The first part of that is due to the fact that we are seeing more and more orders that are requiring that we transfer ownership of an account or transfer part of a balance to another account in the name of an ex-spouse when a divorce occurs. We have been doing this in accordance with those court orders because we have to. But I thought it best that we put this in the law, that is an occasion when this can be done into our program rules, because we have to comply with those orders, and we are seeing more and more and more of these over the last 3 months since the beginning of the year. I know I've seen 5 or 6, and that's a lot. It used to be maybe 1 year, maybe 2, but it's increased substantially. The other part of this rulemaking is just the interest rates for STAR, for principal protection, and for the earnings enhancements. You do this every year. These interest rates are set by the state treasurer. It is not a debatable matter, but the law does provide that we have to put this into every year. So we're up to 49 and 50, I believe 50, 51 for those numbers, but every year it's published in.
To clarify, you've been able to do the transfers. What we're just doing now is putting it into.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that there would be any replacement?
No. No, because the legislation does have a provision that allows us to do the thing that is required by federal law, by state law, or by.
Discussion or comments? Motion to approve. Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next is the home study exception. So consider the request for exception to the top statutory provision that requires a student to begin a home study program no later than the 10th grade. So that we started this.
Second.
Lindsay, Mr. Salter, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, and our last is Hobson and J. Foster promise exceptions. So consider the attached request for exception to the TOPS regulatory provisions that require students to remain continuously enrolled and to earn the annual credit hour required during the academic year, and to the NJ Foster requirement that a student maintain continuous enrollment needs. So those are also listed in the agenda. Questions? Go ahead. Second. And. All in favor, say aye. Let's back to.
So just before you leave, just so y'all know, we had to move because we had a conflict with room scheduling. I could, they changed the rooms last year and I could only schedule them 180 days out in advance. So before we even present to y'all, I go in and make sure the rooms are available. And I book them, but they denied the request. And so for the April meeting, I went in, about 2 weeks ago to book it, and it was already booked for, a blood drive on the day we had it. So we didn't want to move it to that Thursday because physical is not open also because it was getting too close to Good Friday. So we moved it the day to Tuesday, April 15th. So I just wanted you to know that. And I will resend out the calendar invite this afternoon when I get back out to my desk. So that is located on the calendar. And there we go. One more. Sorry.
Two more slides.
Start. Hello, sorry, Mark. You should have called me out. Sorry. I was just like, oh, my face.
If you take a look at the screen here, you'll be able to see our total on deposits for January 2025. In our start accounts, you can see we have a little over 80,000 active accounts. And in those accounts, we have a total of a little over 1.6 billion invested. In the K-12 accounts, we have almost 4,300 accounts in total. And we have over 38 million invested in those accounts. And in the Louisiana Able accounts, we have over 1,400 accounts that are active with 10 million invested, which brings us a total of over 86,000 accounts and 1.7 billion invested in total. We do predict that these numbers will fluctuate over the course of this spring term as high school students are gearing up to graduate and as parents and grandparents are gearing to prepare to pay for those enrollment fees for the fall and for returning students. Summer school. Does anyone have any questions? That concludes the start of things. Thank you.
Next update, Brad will operate myself. We'll continue.
So I am representing CAS for both Shane and myself. The first slide shows you our virtual office hours, which we started using COVID. It shows the totals through the end of February. This month, I wanted to highlight some of the feedback that we got for the virtual office hours. Just give kudos to the team just for the great job that they've done in facilitating these virtual office hours. If you look at the screen, you see that there are a number of positive remarks from the public. I'm just grateful that virtual office hours exist. And they have the opportunity to get in the face for us. So if you look at that second part, You'll see that there are a number of different sources where they're hearing about virtual office hours. Of course, we're really happy about word of mouth, but also SLCC, they learned about during orientation, and then also one of the career coaches, let the student know that we were here as a resource. All right, so Salesforce data. So with LOSFA 2.0, it's nice to talk about LOSFA 2.0. It's another thing to kind of see it in action. So I'm going to explain what we are looking at, and hopefully the colors are distinguished enough for you guys to see what this is. So this first view is showing you the cases by type. And so, of course, with LOSFA 2.0, we have our IAOs who handle like just the basic questions that come in that need a simple fix or simple answer. Then you have the complex issues that are handled by our outreach coordinators, and then you have the intensive advising by our CAOs, our comprehensive advising officers. So if you look at the screen and you see that there are two different charts, one has the open cases by type, and the other has the closed cases by type. What you're looking at is for the circle that has 421 on the inside, you see those cases that are open. And at true to form, the CAOs have the cases that are for like sustained long-term advisors. So both of those that are still open are for the CAOs. That smaller section is for complex issues. When you look at the chart to the right that shows the closed cases, you see the bulk of those are going to be for the complex issues, because those are the issues where I'm missing an ACT score, my name is spelled wrong on my FAFSA, so like something is wrong that's preventing me from either having my award renewed or either receiving eligibility for a program. So these are the cases that we want to close and we want to resolve very quickly because it's standing in the way of the student getting payment. And so you see here that the outreach coordinators have been closing those cases at a higher rate than you would expect to see with the CAOs because they are maintaining that relationship with the advisor. Next slide. Okay, so when we look at the open cases by role, again, we have these three roles. We have the IAOs who are like the front lines of communication. We have the outreach coordinators who handle the complex issues. And then we have the comprehensive advising officers who are going to be introduced for the advising. With the cases in Salesforce, everyone has cases, right? So the scenarios are, we have individuals that come in and sometimes there is no intervention outside of something is wrong with the student's grades. We contact scholarship and grants. So we work with other divisions in this process, and they act as a liaison between us and the school to get the issue resolved. Those cases are monitored. The IAOs, those don't have to be referred out. They monitor them. Once the issue is resolved, they'll close the case. Then the outreach coordinators are taking on the ones where something is wrong, something like we have to do something in order to fix this. And then you have the advisors with the cases that are being referred in, the students that we're referring to them because they need additional assistance. And so what you see here is that this breaks out like who has which cases by role. So you see that comprehensive advisors, again, are going to have the bulk of those open cases because they're maintaining those. And then you see over on the closed cases that the intake and assistance officers and the outreach coordinators are closing those cases. And what's really important to note is that for those cases that are being closed, every one of those represents a problem that could potentially stop students from getting paid or stop their award from being renewed. So we try to be proactive also in getting those issues resolved. And sometimes there are cases where everybody is going to be involved in a case for a student just because there are multiple issues, which brings us to the next slide. So this, if you drill down, is going to break out the cases by reason. So you see that there are multiple reasons that we are working hands-on with a student. A lot of that, the one in green, the 104, is going to be students looking for additional forms of financial aid. Those are the ones that are working with our comprehensive advising officers. And then that 124 opposite that is for students that have multiple issues. So we see, as Dr. Bute says, what had happened was the students have, I have this problem, and this problem. And so it is a collaborative effort amongst ourselves and amongst other divisions in the agency to make sure those issues get resolved for those students. Next. And we want to congratulate Maisha Sanders. She is our newest IAO. She recently completed the courses to earn her NCAN Certified Advisor badge. We also want to congratulate Chelsea Hopkins. She was sworn in as member at large for the Acadia Parish Tourism Commission Board, and she is at the room. So congratulations to Chelsea as well. Next. So this is April and I at the kickoff for LCAM. The Board of Regents hosted the LCAM convening mid-February. And so we had the opportunity to kind of meet some new faces, but mostly see a lot of old faces with a lot of the partners that we work with regularly throughout the year. Next. Kylie and I did a FAFSA training. It was virtual. Fun fact about this, it was during one of our snow days, when the office was closed, but everybody was stuck in the house, so everybody was like, we're still to go. So we met and did some FAFSA training with their staff. And this is Chelsea again at Rain High School. The neat thing about this is that shirt, people love the shirt, people love the socks. They are using that shirt and this photo to help promote FAFSA completion events in their area. And we hosted a FAFSA Frenzy Week in February 17th to 22nd. We had 26 schools that signed up to participate. Thank you, Brad, for sending that out to your listserv. And we also provided socks to the schools to use as giveaways. So they were really excited about that. Of course, as usual, we recognize them with a post on social media to recognize our partners and helpers. And this is Frank Ballman, if you are familiar with him from NASDAQ. So I was presenting during Power Hour with Kristen DuBois from Mississippi. And when I showed the slide again with that FAFSA shirt and those socks, everybody was like, we need that. So yeah, we sent out a couple shirts. I think one like California, so we're working on something with that as well. Sent one to Frank, who sent the picture of him wearing the said shirt. So that was fun. Next. And Haley Pellegrin, who is our outreach coordinator for counselors and parents, facilitated the presentation with SACAC. And so she covered the top 4 curriculum and some of the changes that are coming about and the benefits of the student hub. She also talked a little bit about MJ Foster as well. And this was virtual. There were over 50 counselors in attendance. For the Justice Impacted Fellowship, we are in year 2, and so myself, Kaiser Abel, and Danielle Shields have regularly been meeting with Patrick, who's with the fellowship, basically just to give him updates on some of the things that we're doing, partnerships with the Department of Corrections, and kind of just give him an update on kind of where things are going, what challenges we're seeing, if there's anything that we need from him. And then in addition, we've kind of been talking to him about possibly doing some virtual training for the staff as well. This is for Capri, which is a capital area prisoner reentry initiative. A few months ago, they had kind of their initial convening at the library at East Baton Rouge Parish. Kylie and I attended, and so every month they do their monthly reentry resource fair at one of the libraries in the parish. And so this is something that's recurring. They have expressed a desire for LOSFA to continue to participate as we represent kind of the college access portion of this initiative. And so for this particular one in February, Danny and Pacquiao, one of our CAOs, was the one who was in attendance. And this is Felicia and Chelsea at STEM Day, which was held in Alexandria in Rapides Parish. So this was for 6th grade students from several districts across the state, and they had different games and activities for the students that were very well received. And then they also provided LOSFA resources to those that were in attendance. And this is Love Your Community College Day. It's Lakonga, another CAO, She shared FAFSA and TOPS information with those students, which was a good amount of students for this event. It was over 200. A preview day, this is Louisiana Christian University. They held theirs for 11th and 12th graders, and this was also another comprehensive advising officer, Judy, who facilitated the events and represented LOSFA, and that's also had a good number of attendees, over 100, including students and parents. And then this is another CAO, this is Summer, and this is her at Carroll High School providing information to students, and also the TOPS guide, which has been very well received, disseminating those as well. And West St. John did a launch and learn, and this was kind of neat because it wasn't just the students for the launch and learn, it was also students and parents. And so again, just another example of our outreach staff providing TOPS and FAFSA information to students and parents across the state. This is Trudy again at Lake Charles College Prep, and of course they have some swag. What they're holding up in that picture is one of the student networking t-shirts. And usually everybody likes FAFSA swag. Well, not FAFSA, but LOSFA swag.
Now, do we take a 1 second? Brian, are we still connected on Zoom? I'm sorry, guys. I have to pause for just a second. Brian? Brian, are we still connected? Yeah, okay. Sorry about that.
And this is our virtual student network meeting from February. The keynote speaker was Shawnee Cooper, and this was a very engaging networking meeting. They talked about turning conflict into collaboration, and the participants really did engage with the speaker. They found her comments and her feedback to be helpful. And skip that one. Put that one next one. And Charnel who was also in attendance here, was the guest speaker at LSU Lab School Career Day. So this is her picture and with some of the students, and again, student network pictures. And this is a continuing partnership with Smart Cookie U. Our My LOSFA College advocates do like a mini version or a customized version of the fly tour for the Girl Scouts of Louisiana East. And so as you can see from the picture, this is always like a very well received event. There are like special badges. And so both sides of it, the students and staff just have a really good time whenever we go out for Smart Cookie U events. There have been cookies. They have not brought me back cookies, which is what I asked. There are cookies there. Yes. So we did do a giveaway for Financial Aid Awareness Month, and this is the notorious slide that I put up that led to I need this shirt. So this is the file your FAFSA and the socks, and so we were putting up questions on social media that they had to answer properly, and the winners would get a shirt, and they got a bag, and they got the socks. We also created a webpage to track the many changes that are kind of going on with federal aid. And so that has been helpful to just guide students and parents to that page for any updates as we kind of just monitor things as they're unfolding. The media mentions, most of them focused on FAFSA Frenzy Week. And this is our reach and our views and engagement for our social media sites for Instagram and Facebook. Next. And these are our top posts. Of course, you see the 4 reasons to file the FAFSA. We also did a post for National School Counselor Day that was very well received. And then, of course, our post promoting FAFSA Frenzy Week. And our followers, of course, Facebook continues to be the one that has the most followers. We're working to increase followers across other platforms. Next. And our website update, here's our traffic, which most of it being direct. When you look at the top traffic channels, and then for the pages, it's going to be TOPS and Student Hub. And of course, Facebook remains as the top source of referrals to our website. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
I truly appreciate this. This is great, and I was just so overwhelmed. It's not the right word, but of all of the number of touches you still give to people, by people, and that is so important. And I think people forget that. We assume, well, you can do it over the internet, or you can do that, and then we just forget, well, not everybody has that. That doesn't work for everybody. And the number of people that you get are attending just proves that this matters. It really matters. And kudos to you all. It's a lot of time and energy and a lot of people have, but it makes a difference. I really believe that, and I just wanted to say thank you. Then I just have a little question. Back to one of your slides when you close something, you're talking about. You have to wait till the exemptions come here to close the case, or these exemptions count, I mean, in other words, that doesn't go in that circle.
It depends.
Well,
In some cases, they do get referred to for an exception. In some cases, it can be resolved because, like, Evan said earlier, the school needs to work with the grades, or they need to correct something on the grades, or, they need to send it to us, so we don't cancel them for not enrollment. And it's actually, I would say, very few of them are gonna be exceptions.
but you have to go back when we go on the exceptions here, regions take over. Go back and change it. I guess my question is, when do you get that final number for the exceptions that are here? I said it's already done, probably. No, in other words, the circle you have, how many close these cases? And I'm just curious how the exceptions play into that. They really don't in numerical value, but do you have to get resolution before you get that?
If the exception was the problem, and sometimes that might land in that, what had happened was, and all of y'all have to get involved, because SG might have to do some research, the advisor may have to do some research, and then it may be ready to be able to come to legal court, do they need an exception or not. But I think the biggest thing is on slide 16. Because when you look on slide 16, now the print is tiny, so you have to really blow it up. That is the slide that gives you what types of cases we have by reason. And so it's when you get into these services where it is broader than just the aid that we're talking about, right? And we're finding students have a lot of times, that I don't know how you can blow that up, but it is that slide. When you look at all of those reasons on the side, like career counseling, campus support services, career exploration, college campus, duplicate LOSFA ID, explore academic programs. So there's a lot of things, which is why we had to do this tiered approach.
Yeah.
Because some things you don't need to have your hand held the entire time if all I'm doing is helping you with your LOSFA ID. But that can still prevent you from going further. But when you get down into mental health, sheltering, housing, right? You're into a much broader aspect of providing services to the student. And in many cases, that is, did you do a referral or a handoff and help that student see where they can get those services? But it's just an idea of the everything, everywhere, all at once that the personnel in these units have to deal with. Because it could be, many of those things you say, well, that's not LOSFA. It's like, but that's LOSFA's job to help figure that out for that student if it's impacting their enrollment or their ability to continue, then it is LOSFA 2.0. It wouldn't have been the LOSFA of before. It would have been the same thing to do with cops. Same thing, we don't have that program. And it's like, yeah, but your student personnel and their change is their problems have changed. You need to change with that. And Salesforce, I think, is a magnificent tool, and I really want to give a huge shout out, because I don't get to do it very often with this team here, because this is usually a private sector kind of tool, right? So you're taking a private sector tool with public employees who are saying, no, I'm up to the task, because I'm accountable for my work. And if a legislator or a stakeholder says, well, what do you do? Oh, it's right here. And it's quantified, and it shows just the vast flexibility and knowledge that these folks have to have, because it doesn't stop, maybe we don't do that here. But if some, well, then you need to figure out who does. And how you can hand that person off, so, you know, yeah, it's exceptions maybe, but they will not.
This is a very powerful,
Yes,
very powerful information, because someone that would read through the exceptions, I think one of them, we forget, you know, that for the want of a car, you can't attend school because you've got no transportation, that's in one of the exceptions. That goes over to housing. I think today's there were like 2 or 3 people that got removed from their homes.
I have a question. Are you able to track engagement, on your website and, phone calls and so forth, geographically? For instance, I guess my question is, are we hitting all parts of the state? And can you track that? And particularly, I'd like to know, the rural and the smaller communities. Are we reaching them, and do you see evidence?
I'll start it and then you can finish what I. The way that, I think our best way to do that, and it's funny that you should mention that, because we're actually working on a piece right now that says any, you know, we say any student, anywhere, any age in state of Louisiana. And my question was like, well, can we bring that? Right, I mean, if you're gonna tell that to the legislature, where's our numbers? And we're actually pulling, because when you think by age, from 0 all the way up to 81 is really the age span that we have. Well, with START and the START suite, we can capture the parishes where that aid is distributed. For our searchable 211 database, we do have a geographic frequency map that shows where those individuals are coming in to receive those referrals for the services, all over the state, and which services they're asking us for. That's where some of this data comes from with, okay, what type of cases you have to work. So we're pulling, we have GoRent data by parish and by legislative and Senate and House district. We have TOPS data by Senate and House district, but to your point, okay, how can we pull that together to show stakeholders and lawmakers? And that is what we're doing, like as we speak, we have teams working on that to show, yeah, it really is that, because we're covering this many areas, right? Students and families from this many age ranges, and you're providing all of these services. So yes, once we get that, we're trying to fit it on like a front and back kind of thank you to those stakeholders to say, because you approved us for this funding, this is what we did with it. And if you click here on this QR code and you want to know, well, what's going on in my legislative district, the information that we have by district, it will pop up, right? And so that is what we are actually in the works of compiling now, to be able to show folks the impact of what this hardworking team does and what those dollars do.
Can you tell by your website?
But I
For
don't
those students that
I'm
are
gonna
asking and calling in
I was
questions.
gonna jump in between. We actually have some dashboards on our website that we are updating and trying to make better, but we have one that's called outreach. And with it, you can go into it and look, and I wish I could share, but you can. Oh, I can share it, yes, on our website, where you can see, we have by parish. So if I click on a parish, it's touch screen, if I click on a parish, it changes that I know in this parish that I know. this is what we've done outreach wise. Now, we're trying to, like, Dr. J said, merge our outreach with our Start K-12, Start Able, and all of our programs so we can see all of it together. Right now, we have like our programs with Topsy Go, we have our outreach, we don't have to start together. We want to be able to show comprehensively, and I'm gonna say it horribly here, actually, birds are great because with Able, you can pay variable expenses. So we go the whole gamut. I mean, we have an 81-year-old in NJ Foster. I know my kids didn't get a start account until they were like in 6th and 7th grade, but my great nephew, as soon as his birth certificate came out, I told my little niece, send it to me. He wasn't even a month old when I had him a start account. So we go from birth until death. And we want to be able to show it on a map with by state and like I said, backwards here. The other side's mouse because
And then you see right there, it's like types of events.
right, there's types of it, but here, when you look at our tops one, we actually have this touch screen, I should do that. Makes sense. We have it by not just state, but the parish, I mean, the House and Senate districts, we're trying to get that for everything as well. So that if I'm a district 1, I don't have to go look at the rest of the state, I want to know what my district is, even if it draws 3 parishes. I want to look at my district, because that's where I gotta be responsible for my taxpayers. So we're trying to get there, it's not there yet, and maybe next meeting or the following week can have a debut of what we're doing with data and everything, because we're trying to have all this ready for our session.
Okay.
That's fine. Thank you. Tuesday.
The 14th with the Senate Finance and House Appropriations are the 7th and the 9th. So although one has to get permission to provide handouts and those, well, I have to get permission to send you a thank you note to all of the legislators for what the money that you provided to us. We've done this with it and we got numbers, not just talk. And so this also, once this tool is fully integrated, right? Then we can look at people if nothing pops up for a parish or an area at all, then our folks know, okay, the outreach coordinators in that middle tier, right, that are setting up partnerships know. So then you need to take a look and see who that is and where you can get inroads into that particular community, which is a big transition from, oh, we service our friends and who call us. And, you know, move into LOSFA 2.0, it's like, well, you know what, it's time to make new friends. And if they're not your friend, go find a friend that can friend, because there's students out there and parents out there that need those services. So work in progress, yes, but we're on it.
And that's one of the things as well with the map. But all this information are light, because we don't have any information there yet for outreach. And I've been working with Cass, with Shane and Ebony to say, okay, do we not have any schedule yet? Is it that those high schools are moving to what they're going to another one? It's just they're not meeting at that high school. So they're not captured at that parish, but they're in a neighboring parish. And we do outreach that is broad and like they might bus students because it's cheaper to do that in one place. So we're trying to figure that out to make sure that we're capturing it properly and we're not saying, okay, we're not serving those kids. That's not the case. It's just they're being served in an alternate means, whether it's by busing for the parish or something, and trying to get all that down pat so we can, like I said, put it all together and prove this is what we're doing with the money you're giving us. And we're trying to touch every student everywhere, no matter age, race, gender, years.
Oh, yeah.
All y'all.
So as a counselor, like before I was a school counselor, I worked in the rural parishes. So your question was like perfect, because I always said if I ever get a chance, because the mentality of there is everybody decisions in Baton Rouge and Woodlands for Baton Rouge and Woodlands and not the rural parishes. And so I was like, if I can never speak, I will speak for you. And I'm looking at, I mean, I can't see that far, but like I got a phone call last week on my break that I mean, the white area, okay? I know that there in one of those parishes, there was a counselor that called me about the dual enrollment question, you know? And so like I have connections still in that area that if I can look and see like, okay, let me see who's still working, because you know, there's a turnover and there's a movement. But like there's some economy that's fixing to be moving in Northeast Louisiana, but they still need to be able to connect. And I remember just being a counselor driving in the rural areas, we didn't have a lot of information and the resources weren't there. Like, even getting to the library may take you 45 minutes from your house. If you don't have transportation, you're not getting there. So, I wanna look at that back now. Can you send a direct link to me for that outreach? And then I'll look at it to see, because I know like this particular counselor, we had one class together 20 years ago. She was like, hey, I don't even know the answer. It was an easy answer for me, but I have called Rhonda before. I'm like, hey, can you answer this for certain before I tell her this? It doesn't even come through that. It's a real simple answer, but just make sure because I like to use this. And so like that particular counselor moved from like central to like northwest Louisiana, so she's in a whole different, trying to navigate. Like I think it'd be great since y'all do have. I'm looking at all this stuff. There are a lot of these programs are like presentations that you're showing are in rural areas and like, or at least connections from there. So like I said, as a counselor, I want to be able to look and say like, hey, here's the person, here's how we connect there. And that was the one thing that always bothered me was, I don't even know who to, I didn't even know who to talk to even get stuff to be able to get it out as a professional counselor, not as a school counselor. And so now like another call, I got a call yesterday, it was like somebody was in Northeast Louisiana informed me, and she's like, can you believe they said this? I was like, yeah, there's no training on this. Like, this is a simple, it was a transcript issue. So therefore that child was probably not going to be able to graduate because they didn't have the transcript lined up right, which is a simple, you have to put like a part number, that type of stuff. And so I want to work with y'all on that. Because I do know, I can see some of the white areas, and those were the parishes that I was in.
We're very fortunate, and we know that, to have this makeup of this board. Because we welcome the input, we welcome the diverse backgrounds, the differential in the experiences. Because then that's what, I do need to think about that. Oh, we do need to display that. And, or if we're gonna do A, then you can give us, we know, to your point, we know the impact within our world that we, revolve in, but you know the impact, well, if you do A, like you told us, that's what best else on B. Oh, okay, then I need to rethink that. And that to us is the true collaborative work. So we are grateful for each and every one of you and what you bring to the table.
And to piggyback off of what's been said, what we're currently doing right now is that we also are looking at those parishes. Right now, we're looking at it through a FAFSA completion lens to specifically look at those parishes with lower rates, and they're about to get communication from us. Hey, this is what we can do to come out and assist your students and your parents to try to get those completion rates up, but mostly just to make sure that they have access to hands-on assistance to complete the form, because it's about more than just numbers. It's about, this is your key to enrolling in post-secondary institutions. And so that's one of the things that we do. The second thing that I wanted to say is that in speaking about the people having access to people, we have a number of, we have Lex, which is our chat line, but you are absolutely correct. Sometimes people want to talk to somebody. So we have so many methods of communication: email, chat, virtual office hours, or physically like in person at these events. And one of the things that we tell our team is that no stone unturned when it comes to a student. So whether you have an exception that has been approved, if it hasn't been, we're going to put you in the hands to find you some alternatives. Because if there is an issue that needs to be resolved, we're going to keep working on it until it's fixed. And so that's one of the reasons I believe for a lot of the high praise that we get is that they have access to people to talk to, and that even if something doesn't work here, it's not, oh well, too bad. It's okay, let me connect you with somebody else to see what your other options are. And then when talking about Salesforce, it has been a tremendous help for us. And again, it goes back to positive feedback that everybody with access to Salesforce, and I tell the team, I don't care if something comes, if they send a letter via carrier pigeon, when it comes, put it in Salesforce and document it so that we are all on the same page. You don't have to call back here 3, 4, 5 times. You call once. All that information is in Salesforce. We are all on the same page about what's happening, what steps need to be taken, or telling you, you know what, this is actually already fixed. Like, this is what your next step is. So it's just been incredibly helpful for us as a team, just to help with advancing, and it helps with closing and tracking these cases. And so just very excited about what we've been able to do with Salesforce, even though it's something that's not, as they said, that you normally see more in the private sector.
just have a quick question, and I love this type of meeting because it comes to you to where a lot of problems are. And I like the closures. Do y'all have any type of post-closure students to say, refer you to this agency, y'all have, handoff, but 3 months later, touch the say we're able to get it resolved, work. So I think like this, the financial resource funding money for school, it can involve to a partner. If that partner wasn't able to resolve it, is the student, did they fall out? So I mean, I was saying different times in LSU and even in Southeastern, as students come in and say, hey, I need additional resources. There were no additional resources that provides the student. So I was thinking just like do y'all have any of this like post-closure survey or?
We have them for virtual office hours. For Salesforce, I don't think, but we can add a survey in there because they do send like a notification like, hey, your account is closed, so let them know that it's been resolved. But that's something that we can absolutely put that survey.
Yeah. Because I mean, like career readiness or career counseling, and also with friends, where does you go? Did they actually do career with the process? Just interested to see that.
No, that's actually a good recommendation. We will incorporate.
Cool.
This could be referred to, because we have cases, but most of the time it's not. So we might prefer it externally. But it's open because at the end of the day, we're reaching out saying, hey, I see you met with so and so, like, how did that turn out? So when we close cases, we didn't talk to our resources and made those feedback communications to sure. So
The agent's gonna have some really good information.
There's
Before we continue, if y'all would like to pass the shirt and to pass the sock and pass this around to the Schrader size on him. I sent Kylie on another errand, but when she gets back, she's gonna go look sizes of them to y'all before y'all.
I was gonna ask already.
when this is going to be closed, so somebody in comment because I'm not sure and ask questions, I'm like, okay, you're asking questions, so they definitely do make people ask things. It's amazing, and just like they stole that idea from us, we do that whenever we go to conferences and stuff. We go about rural areas. And one of the things we learned at Inking conference is one of the schools had a slap bracelet. And it also had a USB drive on it that had all their data saved on it. The school or the outreach agency put on all the information that they need, like our top side and all those different things. And then they had enough space on it where the student could also do their essays for applications or whatever. And they had everything on there. And I brought it home and my kids, and they're 19 and 21, to keep my slap bracelet to show it to the office. So, I mean, we try and do that too, because if you don't have internet access, or if the library is 45 minutes away, and it's out in schools.
Is it possible, I mean, one more thing, I mean, when you get your thank you notes ready for the legislature, if you could just be sent a copy of somewhere so that we would know what is being said and done.
Yes.
Just help to remind us, because sometimes people ask it and I can say, well, I don't know.
No,
but
right.
I know this. Appreciate it, thank you.
So, scholarships and grants.
So,
Ron, where's the clear?
Sean. No, I can say it. Right back there. There's
you have, I think, 44. And regular.
Oh, you should sit back there.
I'll get the back.
Hey, good morning. We'll get started with the scholarships and grant update. On the Louisiana Gold Grant, I have some more current information. The remaining balance is, 22.8 right now. And between 3 and 4 million are gonna process tonight. What we've done is contacted the schools who have not billed every week, every Monday, started in late February, reminding them that the goal rate deadline is March 24th. And so what happens is after the March 24th deadline, if the school has not utilized all of those allocations, that money is swept and given to schools who have requested additional resources, additional funding to fund more students at their school. So, we're getting close to it because Monday is the, 17th. So they'll have 2 more weeks after this week's process. And so we've been emailing them every week. We're doing outreach with some schools that are having, specific problems with staffing and that kind of thing to make sure that they can use, their program funding. The John Mark Justice update, for this current year, we've dispersed, $10,000 to the public defenders and $30,000, so it's $5,000 awards to the prosecutors. And I'm sorry, $5,000 awards to each public defender and it's $2,500 awards to the prosecutors. So it's still ongoing. It's just hard to get in touch with some of these attorneys, prosecutors, public defenders especially because some have been laid off and others have additional workloads. And just getting them to get us the paperwork, but we have until September to disperse all of the funds, so we don't see a problem in getting that done. The new award year has started, for 25, which will start, this fall. So we, do have about 20 applications across the circuits. We've used CAS out, to help us out with outreach, so, we send it to we have 4 law schools in Louisiana, Southern LSU, Loyola, and Tulane. We send it to them. We send it to the public defender board as well as the district attorney association. So we're getting more applications for that. Next line. The John Mark Justice Spotlight, it's a federal program. So earlier this year, they asked us to spotlight students, success stories for students who received the John Mark Justice Student Loan Program. And the way that program works for those who don't know, once they've given an award, the money goes toward their outstanding student loan balance. So the student doesn't get the money directly, but we send it to their lender, which helps them reduce their overall student loan debt. So we reached out to some students who had received the award for a period of time. And for the spotlight, we chose Ruby Lewis and Javon Charles for their repayment. So Ruby Lewis, that's her story. She graduated from Northwestern in 2009 and then Southern Law School in 2014. So she works as a public defender she works with the Life Without Parole. She's an assistant public defender for that particular program. And then she also works with the Shreveport Court of Appeals, public defender's office in the Boulder area. So she's received over $31,000 toward her outstanding debt. They can receive the award until they get to $50,000. So she still has a couple more. And with some of the cuts going on the federal side, we're not sure after this year how much we'll have. It fluctuates. The first year, which is about 15 years ago, we got the program. We had like $150,000. Some years we got as little as $63,000. So whatever we do the application, whatever we awarded, we disperse it. Half goes toward prosecutors and half toward public defenders. So Ruby said that this award helped her satisfy her educational debts without experiencing any financial strain. And she's glad to have received the award. The next line is Javon Charles. She received an undergraduate degree from UL Lafayette and the Southern Law Center, so they're probably classmates of that year. But she's received $25,275 toward her loans, and she says it helps her, keeps her motivated to keep fighting the good fight, the stress of trying to pay off 2,000 of loans while providing for her family on public defender salary. So it's helped her become her debt become manageable. She's forever grateful for that program. So those are just 2 of the student attorneys that we spotlighted for the John R. Justice Success Programs. Next is the MJ Foster update. Since the application opening date from June first, we had 15,000 applications. We have, the total applications, 351 were renewal and 10,448 were eligible. So we processed that award according to our schedule of processing. Dr. Boutte sends out a report to the stakeholders every Monday that the research business intelligence and the graphic design team put together with what's going on. We've been getting a lot of refunds, so we have a little bit over $2 million available right now. And then today in the mail, we had refund, probably over $100,000 in refunds from 5 or 6 different schools. So the refunds come back and they can be used again if it's within this academic year. So that's what's going on with MJ Foster. And we're interviewing our former specialist, took a job as a director of financial aid at a Paris Community College in December. So we're currently interviewing for a replacement for that position. So Tom's administrator has been working MJ Foster along with other duties in the interim. So yeah. The Go You Challenge program, this program was refunded because the initial funding had been spent down. So we have money this year, $50,000, and it's going to be used until it's spent down. So we've awarded 2 students this spring. So every week we kind of get feedback from the 3 youth challenge centers. There's one in Carville, one in Minden, and one in Pineville, to see if there are students who are completing that program and are interested in doing post-secondary. It pays for their tuition for up to 2 years, and they have to major in a job that a job that is classified as a 3, 4, or 5-star by the Louisiana Workforce Commission. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Okay, so on our top billing comparison, okay, that's fine. All right, so top billing comparison, so far we are on track. We're about 2% above where we were this time last year. So that's why you see the fiscal year 24 and 25, the variance of 5 billion. So again, you know that before that variance was significantly larger. We've reduced some of the allocations or right-sized them, and that is helping. But according to our figures and projections, we should be able to finish TOPS this spring, as well as have sufficient funds to pay for summer. And that is how we look at that. Because if you're not going to be able to pay for summer, you don't want to put that application up. Students depend upon getting that fund, and then you have to say you don't have enough. So far, so good with TOPS.
And hold that after your session
Say again?
for next year, yes.
Yes. No, this is the allocation that will carry us through for this summer. And then after session, you're talking about what we would have for TOPS for next year, for the next academic year.
And this number is slightly lower than current right now as of March 10th, which is 262.11 actually. So
And
we
we're
have,
1%.
right, 1.3%. So we have maybe $37 million left for the remainder of spring and summer. So we should be sufficient for this year.
And this summer TOPS payment is still on the website. 2 years ago, we took off like the date they have to fill in the summer payment. So if you have students starting to ask about that, it should be out there on the website. They print it out. The key is they like to email that to us, and they have to turn it into their financial aid records.
It's our spotlight.
So my name is April Bergen. I am the Partnership Engagement Administrator. With LOSFA with me is Charlotte Talley, who is our Conference Facility Administrator, and then Chelsea Gallo Hopkins, I think that's his name, right? Who is one of our Comprehensive Advising Officers. So our spotlight today is our justice impacted initiatives that we've been doing this year, over the past year. We just kind of want to give you a little report of what that looks like in building the foundation of this. So we have 3 pillars. We have outreach, we have comprehensive advising, we have partnerships. Towards the end, Chelsea's going to kind of give you some case studies of people that we've actually assisted to where you can see how all of that molds in real time, working together. So with the FAFSA Simplification Act, we know that federal aid opened up to justice impacted individuals, whether they were currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. With the opening of federal aid, that also allows some state aid to be eligible for those students that are currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, along with a lot of other additional aid. So college access became a much more transparent option for these students. And with LOSFA 2.0, we were able to strategically align ourselves with our programs and our resources and our services to better go out and assist these individuals. So I'm going to do the partnership section. We have aligned ourselves at the national level with organizations like NPAN. At the state level with the Department of Corrections, our universities, our community colleges, our private sectors, and then at the local level, so there's nonprofit organizations to expand equity in college access. And we will say that our justice impacted individuals, where we're getting the most feedback and the most reach is at the local level, because they're going into their communities asking for help. So that is where we are navigating our services. Next slide. This is just an example of some of those organizations at the community level. We do work with coalitions, regional coalitions, St. Landry Evangeline and Capri. Goodwill Industries has districts and regions that we provide communications with. Louisiana Parole Project is also one of our partners. United Way, inclusive of the 211 database, where we get some of our resources for wraparound services, as well as the Justice and Accountability Center for Louisiana. We talk about business and industry, so these, especially reentry individuals, need to work. So we work heavily with the Louisiana Commission in their reentry services, making sure that where there's a job opportunity, we're all in the know so we can inform our advisees. Post-secondary, this is not an exhaustive list, right? This is just over the past few months, we've really been working with these post-secondary institutions, but Loyola, you'll see later what that looks like, and then LCTCS. Really just providing a space too for us to meet with these individuals on a one-on-one basis, because transportation is a barrier, where they are, meeting them where they are, right? And providing those comprehensive advising services. And then with the reentry programs, we've been able to access a facility, a prison facility, go in and provide college access information. And then those GEO reentry services and day reporting centers are places in the community when they're on probation or parole. There's programs that help them with securing employment, getting their high set, enrolling in substance abuse programs. So we've been able to access those facilities as well, providing college access, because they need to know about college just as much as everything else. Next slide. 2 highlights is our St. Landry and Evangeline Coalition. Damian Papillon, who's one of our comprehensive advising officers, sits on that in that team. And then Capri, which is the Capital Area Prisoner Reentry Initiative. And I just pinpointed those 2 because they serve 2 totally different districts, right? And we're able to align ourselves as a statewide agency where we have representation and we can take best practices from both, share it with each other, and take that within ourselves too, and go into other organizations and coalitions and groups that are looking to serve their communities. Next slide. All right, so the Jesuit Social Research Institute with Loyola, in September, we met at a conference, and then the next month they invited us to participate in their reentry guide project. So they received a grant from EJP which is the Education Justice Project, where they can provide not so much a directory, but a workbook for currently incarcerated individuals to create a plan of reentry. So yes, it does have a little bit of directory in it, but it's more so a plan of action where we have exercises included in it, worksheets included in it, so that while they are currently incarcerated, they can develop a plan of reentry and nobody can contact them and make it out, right? Establishing that rapport from the very beginning. Next. Indian Ascendian Fellowship webinar, we wrote a grant and was accepted into their fellowship last year. And it has greatly improved our efforts as well as we look at national best practices and implementing them into our own strategy. On the vice versa side, they're looking at us with best practices and they're taking our best practices and putting it nationwide. We did in December a webinar. LOSFA was invited to participate in an in-camp webinar supporting justice impacted students, which that webinar launched in-camp's College Access and Success for Justice Impacted Students resource page. So they're taking all of the information they received from the fellowship and adding it to the resource page so everyone can have access to it. LOSFA also has been solely invited to participate with in-camp in developing a blog that you'll see in the future where we are showing the work that we're doing, those best practices to share nationwide as well. Next. Okay, so I talked about partnerships. I'm going to give the mic to Charnel, who's going to talk about the other two pillars, which is outreach services and comprehensive advising.
All right, so now we're going to just dive into how LOSFA is serving the Justice Impacted Group in the area of outreach. Just as you can see, we have a couple of maps and graphs and charts. But with the help of our event and outreach coordinator, Ms. Felicia Armand, she has been truly an inspiration with getting involvement with this particular population through the use of invitation of being a part of those events. So LOSFA has been able to provide professional development and training to over 400 professionals that are working in the justice impact system. So this is something that is definitely done through the collaboration of Ms. Felicia, and also those events that were held were in-person events and in-house LOSFA webinars. So it's something that we definitely pride ourselves in regards to what we are able to do to build those partnerships, to make those things very community-based so we can, continue to do the work that we're doing in this particular population. A couple of partners that we have been able to touch along the way, as you can see, United Way, Goodwill Industries, of course, just as April mentioned on the national level, NCAN, and of course, the Department of Corrections. So with that being said, LOSFA has been able to serve over 2,800 members that have been involved in the Justice Impact program, as well as through the understanding through those resource fairs, job fairs, the re-entry of HiSET graduation ceremonies, being able to be a part of that process is something that we have been able to share with those students and more. To the right of that, as you can see, that pie chart just demonstrates the bulk of our time as to where we are serving those justice impacted populations. As I just mentioned, through the understanding of those job and career resource fairs, we are meeting these students in person. We're getting their stories. We're getting an understanding and a revelation as to what they've been through. And this is how we have been able to serve those populations. And of course, just as I mentioned, through the understanding of those celebratory ceremonies. Next slide. Just as I mentioned, building upon that previous slide, this is just to show as to how we have been able to serve through the use of outreach and how that has impacted an increase in numbers through our comprehensive advising. So these two are definitely in correlation with each other. As you can see on the left-hand side, the areas that we have been able to serve through our outreach is impacting our neighboring parishes that we have been able to advise on the individual comprehensive advising level. So it is no coincidence that this is definitely serving throughout all the parishes, but collaboratively, we've been able to touch on about over 20 parishes in the state of Louisiana.
I'll mention too, that conversation y'all had earlier about that map.
This just shows like how one service that we're providing is having an impact on another service and vice versa. So now we're able to look at this, just from just an impacted standpoint and say, okay, this following next year, where are we focusing? Who are we strengthening, who are we inviting to the table, so. Just wanted to do that.
All right, so now we're gonna switch gears and just kind of focus on that third pillar that April mentioned, and that is through the understanding as to how we are serving this population through our comprehensive advising services. So just a little backlog knowledge, comprehensive advising is more of a holistic approach that we are using to support students that goes beyond their knowledge of college access and understanding. But we definitely want to tailor those needs on centering this advising support through those wraparound support services. So just a little backlog as to what that is. But pretty much what we are using this for is to gather an understanding through our data reporting center in regards to just knowing how many referrals that we are touching in this particular population. We have not been working with this just impact in population very long. We started in about June of 2024, and based on the reports, we have assisted totally about 32 students that have self-identified as justice impact. And I want to specify on the self-identification part because we have touched on more students, but we do not know if they are involved in that particular population. We would like to believe that there is more, but the self-identified persons total to be about a number of 32 students. Those referrals, as you can see on the right-hand side, 13 of them were direct referrals, okay? We are proud to say that our very first referral came from the Louisiana Parole Project. So that is something that we definitely wanted to highlight in this period of reflection. And of course, you know, a lot of those other ones were coming from job fairs and just understanding as to how we have been able to do so through forms of collaboration with those high-set ceremonies as well. So just showing how we're piecing this whole process together. Next understanding is that we have 5 referrals that came from mail correspondence. Yes, these are students that have been able to handwrite us letters, okay? Handwrite us letters concerning their understanding as to they want more knowledge. They want more information on how LOSFA can become involved in where they are in their process. So pretty much we were able to provide 4 of those individuals a seminar that was facilitated. That's one of those in-house seminars that we were able to talk about financial aid and getting the understanding of how they can start their process through collaboration and funding. That was pretty much done at the Raymond Memorial Correctional Facility, which is located in Cottonport, Louisiana. We did have one individual, which is that last one that did reach out to us. That was an out-of-state inquiry. We definitely did not want to turn that student away in regards to just seeking any necessary knowledge. So we definitely wanted to provide them with the right level of resources for where they were in that particular state. And then, of course, the 14 came from request form. 9 of those were self-referrals, okay? Students that were advocating for themselves that wanted to say, hey, where do I start? What can I get started on in this process at this current moment? One of those referrals is actually from a family member. So this is something that we definitely are going to continue to see a lot more where the information is getting out. Persons are saying, hey, is this beneficial for a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine, a cousin? So that is something that we definitely are going to continue to see. And then 4 of those referrals from the request form were coming from college referrals. Colleges advocating for persons that may have been impacted. How can a person such as themselves get involved? And those colleges were from Loyola, Bossier Parish Community, and of course, Women's College.
And I'll point out the mail correspondence referrals, they are all currently incarcerated. That's the reason why they're mailing in. And we've been strategic in giving them that option, making sure that they have accessibility to mail us. And then for the request form, there's college referrals. So those are students that the colleges are working with, and they need help finding those wraparound resources. So colleges have resources, community resources, but you can see the need to expand those resources. So we're able to help them as well.
All right, and this is just an understanding as to how, the divisions here at LOSFA, we have always cross-division collaboration and partnerships within the agency. And again, this helps us to maximize the impact and improving pretty much the efficiency as to what we are doing, working with those students that are just as impacted and all the students that we serve in the state of Louisiana. So now that we've heard from the perspective of the second pillar of pretty much working in outreach, that third pillar of understanding how we do this on the level of comprehensive advising, we're now going to touch on how we are working with the students on the individual level through the aspects of testimonials. And we will hear that from Ms. Chelsea, which is our CA.
Just to give you a little reality of it all, our comprehensive advising officers, which I'm one of those, we have the joy and the pleasure of working one-on-one with these students. Whether they're still in high school, whether they're going back to school in their 50s, or whether they are just incarcerated or whatever their circumstance may be. So I'd just like to share a few highlights. We are currently working with these students and more, but we have a case study of 4 individuals that I'd like to share their stories with you guys. Our first justice impacted scholar is Mr. Johnny. He's a 48-year-old single father of a 16-year-old. And I have the pleasure of working with Johnny. Johnny met LOSFA, connected with LOSFA while he was still incarcerated in July of 2024. We took heed of his release date and scheduled to meet with him because he was motivated and shared his story that he wanted to go to SLCC, which is now also left. Well, through the process of getting involved in meeting Johnny, we were able to help him complete his FAFSA application, help him to complete his SNAP application and his admission to SOLAD. So out of the course of those things, of course, they face those barriers. Well, he had a family emergency and had to move out of state. When he came back in state, he reached out immediately and was ready to start the process on getting back aligned to start school. Well, he was supposed to start school in February, and he had a transportation barrier, which prevented him from starting school and some paperwork issues. So I would just like to share with you that he was highly motivated. He now has a motorized bike that he's going to use whenever he starts the program, because in his first week, he has to enroll in another program. And he is now employed. So that's a major highlight for Mr. Johnny. And our next scholar is Mr. Trey. He's a 22-year-old father as well. He connected with LOSFA in August of 2024. And he connected with LOSFA from the Louisiana Patrol Division. And it was mainly because of his high set scores. They were extremely phenomenal. And he is actually working with his April here. And he is going to start the HVAC program in August. But now he's currently taking 2 Gen Ed courses to get him acclimated with college. And he wants to pursue his bachelor's degree when he's done with his HVAC program.
Because getting a job is his priority, right? But he does have dreams as well.
And he's now working part-time and doing those 2 Gen Ed courses as well. And the part-time job that he does have is with an HVAC company. So hopefully he will be able to earn some time to gain some more credits before he starts his program in college.
So we'll be working with him on prior credit learning so that he doesn't have to start at the very beginning when he starts in the fall. So he'll already have that work.
Just to continue motivating him. And our next scholar is Amber. Miss Amber is 30 years old and she has a disability. So she is more interested along the lines of online learning and work from home jobs. She's working with one of the CEOs here, Ms. LaTonda Scott. And she met with LOSFA from the Day Reporting Center in Monroe, Louisiana. She is currently enrolled in the medical building and coding program at Louisiana Delta Community College. And she has also been able with Ms. LaConda Scott to connect and get some of those LAA services through LOSFA as well. And our last scholar that we would like to highlight is Mr. Shad. Mr. Shad actually came to LOSFA, walked here, to find out those resources, and he was able to connect with another CEO, Mr. TJ. He comes to us from a career job fair where he heard about LOSFA's resources, but he already has an associate's degree in IT. He's been out of the workforce for quite some time, so he wanted something different, and he was interested in CDL. So she was able to connect him with different resources, and mainly Employ VR. And his area is a little bit different because he currently lives inside of Pathway Home. So he has some restrictions, and some of the jobs that he was able to obtain, he has come as up because of those restrictions. But I would like to gratefully share with you that he actually completed the CDL program in December of this past year, and is still working with Ms. Trudy. And he was also able to get a higher ranking at his current job because of that CDL program that he. So just to put that in perspective for you guys to share those highlights with those students.
So when you were saying, does the case close? So if you look at all the partners that we've worked up with through these case studies, those are referrals. We are referring them to them, but we're not dropping them at the door, right? So then we're coming back and saying, how's it going? Do we have any issues? Many times we're meeting them at that WIOA office, literally helping them fill out that application. I don't know if you filled out a WIOA application, but it requires handwriting and very lengthy process. So those cases, I mean, when we talk about intensive advising, that support is from the beginning to the end. Well, there's not really an end, right? Until they move on with their lives. But yeah, so we just wanted to share that with you. If you don't have any questions, we just like you for your time.
Thank you for all the work that you're doing. It was a needed area and y'all have just like taken it on. And I mean, like, just even getting this update, like, I remember having a conversation with you, April, like, a couple years ago, and you're like, this is what I'm doing. And like, to see it now, like, this is incredible.
And honestly, like, you can have the passion and you can have the skill set, but if you don't have the support from leadership, it gets lost in translation. So a big kudos to our leadership team from the very tippy top to everybody involved, because like, just, they have obstacles and barriers, right? Our justice impact individuals have challenges, but what we do too is serve. Because there's not like a money tree out there to give them a new car, give them a motorized bike. So we have those barriers too, so we share that burden. But to have leadership support and, you know, think critically, think strategically, and think creatively, and making sure that these students get served is tremendous. I'm grateful to be a part of it.
The other thing that you all do is persist.
Yes.
Persistence matters here, and you are truly making a difference. I know you know that. But I hope you also feel that, because this matters. To this one person, to this person's family, just extend it down. Thank you very much, because it cannot be an easy thing to do.
No, and you know, overall, I would say that no one's doing this work, but in the trenches they are.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to make sure that regardless of what's being told out there are people in the trenches that do care. That's where it starts. So.
Well, and when you said that, it just made me think, my prior life before state counselor was working alongside juvenile delinquents, right? So once we worked with them for a year, intensely for 10 weeks, and then a year, and then they're gone. And there were some students that ended up incarcerated afterwards, and like I would hear about it in the community because I had nothing. There was always this desire to see something for them happen, because like so many times, none of my kids graduated from high school. Like a few did, but like overall, like over 400 families, I probably only had 10 graduate from high school in that amount of time. And so I was like, what are they gonna do after this? Because they're on this path, but like, need somebody to come in. And like, you told me the dream, and like, when you told me your start, like, I was like, to see this today, like,
I'm gonna take a little time to process it because it's just so exciting. I mean, they're 48 years old. At that point, like they could have given up on everything. You know, they could continue with one path, but like, hey, somebody cares, and like you're changing it for the generations. The 16-year-old daughter, like they see that this is like their father did this. I can do anything because they've done this. And like those small, like you're talking about in the churches, like those counselors that were doing that work, we were doing that every day. Like we couldn't tell our stories because of the doubt, right? I have like 10 years of stories inside of me. And so when I hear this, I'm like, that's that, you know, and so I sincerely appreciate what you're doing.
And I would like to take a second just to April acknowledge leadership, to acknowledge April and the CAOs and the individuals that are doing the work. It can be extremely rewarding, but it can be extremely frustrating. So about them just being persistent, you have to have a heart for the work, or else you're gonna like fizzle out very quickly. You know, in working with these students, just kind of hitting a brick wall and then like, okay, we're gonna redirect, or what do we need to do, just kind of sticking with it to make sure we're able to persist. And then also the fact that April has been, they asked basically for her to sit on the panel, was it the SHIELD conference? SHIELD conference, because LOSFA is also emerging like on the national level as a leader, even in justice impacted work, because it's people are in the trenches doing it, but as a whole, like a comprehensive structure is not there. And so just very proud of the work that she's doing.
And all our CAOs that are in the house, let's see, Chelsea's here and Daniel's here. So again, you know, this is one of the proudest moments I have in doing this work. Listen to this, but you can hear the care in the voice. You can hear the respect in the voice, and that speaks volumes. You can't fake that. The people that you're working with, so that's how you are.
So the only thing left is a reminder about the next meeting date, which is set for Tuesday, 15th. And then from there, can I get a
Make a motion.
favor?
Aye.
Here, go.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank y'all for coming in today. Having their shrimp course over with chicken or something, and salad, and so very crisp for dinner.
To get your attention with people.
Yes, very simple.